What is the meaning of our life if we're destined to die? Boom, that's why this is the most important video so far. The question of all questions. What's the point of everything if then everything ends? Peter Wessel Zapffe, one of the most ruthless philosophers of the 20th century, said what no one wants to hear. Consciousness is a mistake of nature. We are the only animal that knows it's going to die, and yet we pretend this awareness isn't eating us alive from the inside. You feel it too, don't you? That void that comes, say, on a Sunday night when the noise fades and only silence remains. The truth is too hard, so we retreat into lies. We call them purpose, faith, hope. Zapffe called them defenses against reality. 4 strategies that offer no answers but help each of us stay sane. Everyone uses them, you too. And now you'll find out what they are, but be warned. This won't be a walk in the park, but it will be one more step into awareness. Because once you start seeing your life as a performance, you can't pretend anymore, and you'll be able to choose. Every child discovers death before age 7, and stops asking about it right after. Not because they've understood, but because they've sensed no one wants to talk about it. It's like everyone signed a pact. We don't mention what terrifies. This is the first defense against reality, denial. But it's not just about denying facts, it's about cutting out pieces of consciousness just to make life bearable. Once aware of their mortality, the human being falls into an abyss. Denial is the rope that pretends it's still tied to something. It's everywhere, in empty chatter, in the frenzy of endless to-dos, in the normalization of everyday life. How many times has someone asked you, all good, and you replied, yeah, I'm fine, even though you were screaming inside? How many times have you seen others do it? We deny death, pain, emptiness, absurdity. We even deny that we're denying, because admitting it would lift the veil of the fiction that holds society together. We're trained not to think, to smile while we sink. Zapffe went as far as saying that humans developed a level of consciousness that nature never intended. We are, according to him, a mistake of evolution. That's why denial isn't a choice, it's survival. Look at what happens in hospitals. Doctors lie to terminal patients. So do family members. They say it's to protect them. In truth, it's to avoid breaking the pact of denial. Because a look that's too clear-eyed can trigger collapse in the one who receives it. And so we keep ignoring randomness, suffering, failure, death. We dress up tragedy in motivational words. We call it a challenge. We call it a lesson. And I have to admit I do it too. But it's just the same mechanism in action. Don't think, don't feel, don't speak, or the abyss will swallow you. But the abyss is there. It's always been there. And whoever looks into it really risks understanding too much. And to understand, as Zapffe said, is to suffer. We don't know the names of the children who starved to death yesterday. And deep down, we prefer it that way. Because if we knew them, we'd be forced to feel something devastating in our hearts. And to feel something real might collapse everything that keeps us standing. We don't look at the genocide happening now. We're still debating whether to call it genocide or not. And that's truly ridiculous. The world is falling apart, but our routine stays intact. Coffee, notification overload, endless bullshit in WhatsApp groups, and off we go, commute to work, our daily black hole. The same exact excuses every day to avoid thinking. We call it organization. Zapffe called it existential isolation. We separate what disturbs, we lock it in mental drawers like we do with poison to keep it away from kids, but in this case we are those kids. But not seeing doesn't mean being blind. It means having learned not to look. If your consciousness opened fully to pain, to injustice, to the absurdity of the world, you'd collapse. That's why you isolate, filter, silence, cut, darken, just to stay upright. Society rewards you for keeping your eyes fixed on productivity, on goals, on so-called stability. But what does emotional stability mean in a world that loses a piece of itself every day? Children buried under rubble, women slaughtered while waiting for food, elderly people dying alone, animals that after a life of suffering are butchered alive. That's happening right now. But your brain can't take it, so you shut down, go silent, archive it. The point is, isolation isn't just personal, it's collective, institutionalized. That's why you can ignore bloody wars and know everything about the latest celebrity feud. It's not lack of information, it's training to avoid it. Because real reality is like a live wire. Touch it and you blow up. Zapffe put it brilliantly. Too much clarity paralyzes. That's why we build distraction bubbles and comforting silences. But they're not shields, they're cages. Sooner or later we have to choose, do you want to stay protected or become aware? We believe in things we never chose. We defend our Catholic religion, good and holy, which we just happen to be born into. Not because of any revelation, We defend our God out of the 100,000 gods humanity has known, but ours is the true one, the others are not. We think these are sacred convictions, but they're inherited. Once again, they're not meant to show us the truth, they're meant to keep us afloat. Zapffe said, anchoring is giving meaning where there is none, telling ourselves stories so we don't go mad in the chaos. Humans can't stand the void, can't accept living in an indifferent universe without justice, without guarantees. So we cling to myths, symbols, fairy tales, family, nation, God, not because they're real, but because without them, everything feels unbearably random. And then those same anchors become ideological cages. You live to be a good father, an exemplary wife, a model citizen. But did you ever truly choose those roles? Do they free you or consume you? Soldiers die without knowing for whom or why. Parents brutalize their kids by repeating toxic patterns they lived as children. Believers hate, discriminate, and kill in the name of religion. It's not about destroying so-called values. It's about asking who profits from your obedience. Anchoring means stopping thought exactly when it's most urgent. The truth sets us free, but man chooses the cage, the one with the most comforting name. According to Zapffe, this obsession with meaning arises from existential panic. We're not rational. We are scared beings pretending to be clear-headed, and in terror, any fairy tale will do. As long as it protects us from the void, even science becomes an anchor when it's turned into dogma. Even love, when it's just there to feed the fear of abandonment. You don't need to believe in anything to be free. But freedom is terrifying because it makes no promises and offers no certainties. So most people keep clinging to symbols, prayers, flags, not because they're true, but because they're crutches that keep us from falling, until you realize you're walking in circles, tied to an anchor that was never yours. Every work of art is born from a scream no one managed to smother. What we call beauty is often just pain transformed into something else. Man can't eliminate suffering, only try to express it, sublimating the pain, turning tragedy into language, art, theory. It doesn't save, but it entertains and it vents. And entertainment is essential because sublimation doesn't heal, it reorganizes pain into something bearable. The poet writes about the lack. The musician sings hope while drowning. Art is born in the depths of conflict. Van Gogh, Heath Ledger, Kurt Cobain, they gave us so much beauty, but they bled while doing it. And the world applauded too late. Sublimation isn't salvation, it's just postponing collapse. And it's the smartest mechanism because it's the most refined. It doesn't deny, it doesn't isolate. It looks into the abyss and dresses it up as metaphor. Pain becomes aesthetic, emptiness becomes philosophy, death becomes spirituality. But beneath it all, only the most terrifying chaos remains. The most complex systems, the most refined ideologies, the deepest works, all are attempts to make life feel less like a tragic mistake. Yet they're still constructs. Even our brain is programmed to create meaning when it finds none. It's an evolutionary trick to avoid breakdown. To sublimate means exactly this, giving form to despair. We call it art, religion, love, literature, spirituality. But at the core, it's just suffering desperately trying to make sense. Sublimation keeps you going, but it doesn't set you free. Even when you turn your wound into gold, it's still a wound. Decorated, beautified, but intact. Sure, let's admit it, this is a badge we can wear proudly. Humans are the only animals who, while suffering, try to turn it into poetry. Because maybe it's time to accept we're not here to find meaning in everything, but to fully live each moment. The problem isn't that life has no meaning. The problem is trying to reduce it to just one. You don't need to fit it into an idea, an ideology, a comforting tale. Life isn't a theory to figure out, it's an experience to move through. The meaning of life is to live life. Pain isn't a mistake. The void isn't the enemy. The silence so many fear is what brings us home. Don't try to fill life with goals, purposes, beliefs. Stay with what's here. Breathe. Look. Listen. You are living consciousness, and that's enough. As long as you seek answers outside yourself, you'll always be a slave to fear. But if you can stay present, even in the dark, even in the worst storm, you'll discover life is far more than the mind can hold. You don't need a meaning, you need presence. And then even the absurd becomes dance, even pain becomes growth. That's the real awakening, not to understand everything, but to live everything, without running away. Chaos isn't to be avoided, it's to be ridden. Because that's where your freedom hides. And if our consciousness is a mistake of nature, well, what a magnificent mistake. If you've made it this far, know this. That in itself deeply supports my work. Every word, every comment on this topic keeps a flame alive in a world that prefers filters over truth. This is the most important content on the channel, so far. What do you think? What thoughts does it spark in you? The video shown on screen is perfect to continue your journey of growth and discovery, because always remember our unmatched mantra: the truth sets us free.